The following episode of the Comics and Crypto podcast is for informational purposes only, and anything expressed by the hosts or their guests is solely their opinion. This podcast does not constitute financial advice, and anyone wishing to invest should seek their own independent financial or professional help. Have fun and enjoy the show.
Hi, I'm Sean O'Hare, and I know comics.
Hi, I'm Spencer Vogel, and I know crypto.
Hi, I'm Kevin Lee Loader, and I don't know shit. This is the Comics and Crypto podcast.
Comics and crypto, crypto and comics, collectors world in a digital age. Comics and crypto, crypto and comics is where the next billionaires will be rich. Comics and crypto.
What is up, VeVe fam? Today we have a very, very special guest, New York Times bestseller, global keynote speaker, and podcast host of 5 Questions with Dan Schawbel. Welcome, our good friend of the podcast, Dan Schawbel.
Well, it's so good to be here. I feel like I'm like the meat in the Spencer and Sean sandwich right now. Like they're here and I'm like here being stuffed in. So
So great to have you here, Dan.
So good to have you, man. Yeah, man, where do we start? There's so much fun things to talk about, especially like the VeVe market. I know that you've been involved with VeVe for the past year. We've talked about it so much. So many different drops and collectibles have dropped. You know, we've had so many discussions about the market as well. What's your current take on the market right now for VeVe?
well, I like to look high level and then more micro. So
Yeah.
I've been doing a ton of research on like what's going on in the overall market. And of course, there's kind of a dip in the overall collectible space. It's not like VeVe is kind of unique in the fact that there's a dip there. There's dip pretty much everywhere, you know, in comics. And in just about everything, video games and other things that we'll talk about. And I just think it's, you know, it's because of the economy. Crypto's down, pretty much everything is down. So, you know, a lot of people will isolate one thing, you know, this collectible class is down or that, or crypto's down or this coin's down. And really it's everything has been down and been corrected. That doesn't mean it's the end of the world. It just means we're in this kind of low period. But there's a lot to be hopeful for. You know, I love data. In fact, you know, my company, Workplace Intelligence, we do, you know, about 6 or so studies per year. And I've led 62 research studies in 10 years. So I'm obsessed with data. I send stats to, you know, Sean and everyone all the time. And some of the ones I dug up because I thought they really, really, you know, show where the market's going, not where we are currently. The first one is the collectible and NFT market size forecast will reach $1 trillion by 2032. And that's by the company that did that is Market Decipher. The second stat is crypto users spent 2.7 billion minting NFTs in the first half of 22 alone. And that's by a company called Manson.
Incredible.
And then another stat talking about the metaverse where we're all headed. Obviously, that's something that we're all hopeful for, and the NFTs hopefully will play a big role within that future metaverse, and that will transform how we work and live. Is the metaverse and entertainment market share is expected to increase by 28.92 billion between now and 2026, with a growth of 8.55%. And then the two other stats, the one I shared with Sean like 10 minutes ago, which I think is like mind blowing, is nearly 75% of retailers plan to accept cryptocurrency payments within the next 2 years. And that's a study by Deloitte, which is one of our clients.
And you've
To
been
me,
seeing all of that
that's
recently.
mind blowing, right?
Tiffany
Think
just
about
had their
that.
big announcement.
One of my favorite gifs, guys shaking, is I'm too bullish. I've seen that gif. No, but that's how I feel right now. It's unbelievable. $1 trillion by 2032.
And Sean and Spencer, we also look at it from a workplace context. Like I remember sharing the study with you. We did a study with SoFi earlier this year. We found that from even a workplace context, 42% of employees would like the option to receive performance rewards in NFTs, and 36% are open and would like the option to be paid in crypto. So this is not only early, but people are already having these opinions. They're already changing their behavior. And what you could see in the future is NFTs become everything, meaning like I think one of the big things that will transform NFTs is when you use an NFT as a ticket to, you know, fly and use at the airport. You know, JetBlue, Delta, United, they start accepting NFTs and create NFT type tickets, just like you would use an NFT to see maybe a sports game. I think that's going to be revolutionary, because I remember one of the reasons why I stopped using a printer was because you could do everything electronically and you no longer
Yeah.
had to print a boarding pass.
Yeah.
And so again, once a lot of these things, once they start using NFTs, it'll become such the norm that we won't even think about it. In fact, like we might not even think of them as NFTs at that point, just because
love that you said
it's
that.
just going to be,
Yeah.
it's going to be ubiquitous.
That's exactly what it is, right? I mean, even on VeVe right now, you feel that way. I sent the app to my parents. They signed up. They started buying collectibles without me even instructing them how to do it. And they're basically using cryptocurrency and they're also buying NFTs and they don't even realize it. And that's kind of like the future, what you just said, Dan. You nailed it. That's exactly where I see it going.
Well, I also think that this whole branding of premium digital collectibles, even though right now people are saying NFTs, and technically that's what that is we might just revert to premium digital collectibles or digital collectibles as a whole, because it's more mainstream consumer friendly. And that's something that David and Dan knew years ago. That's how they were communicating it in Asia, where, there was a stigma behind NFTs. And so I think that we could just revert to kind of digital assets, digital property, digital collectibles in the future, because again, it's something that may be more obvious and friendly. And right now, I think NFTs is a little bit of a stigma because of kind of the pump and dumps, the scams and all the things that have happened.
Yeah.
So maybe in the future, as things get more accepted, it could be just kind of like digital property, digital assets, digital collectibles in terms of that class.
And you've already seen big companies like Meta start using that terminology as well.
Exactly. Instagram as well. They're both using that term, digital collectibles. We actually sent a tweet about that like a month ago. And I saw that and like, oh my gosh, there you go. And people have been giving VeVe a hard time about using that term or that name. Incredible foresight there.
VeVe isn't going after like the mainstream like NFT people. They're going after people who haven't heard of NFTs before, who are interested in collecting these big IPs.
Yeah.
Correct. That is one of the most important points that people fail to realize. And it's because a lot of us are in our own little, stovepipes. We're on our own little caves talking about NFTs. Whereas think about all the people that VeVe acquired during the Golden Moments drop. They don't know what an NFT is. They're just like, I like, R2D2 or whatever IP that they enjoy. They weren't thinking about, oh, this is an NFT as much, right? And they're not worried about a lot of the things that we think about regularly and talk about, right? It's much more simple from a mainstream perspective. Is I just like Winnie the Pooh. I'm going to get a Winnie the Pooh, digital collectible. Like, I think that's what it's really going to come down to. And I think they know that, but VeVe has to both support these mainstream users as well as the hardcore kind of crypto NFT collectors at the same time. So it's this really difficult balance. That's why we're seeing like kind of the min sizers are kind of all over the place and whatnot, is because it's still experimentation. Oh, how many people are active users now? Who are these active users? Who is fans of what? And then working with the licensors to make sure that, it's something that could work. And that's why some of the, drops aren't even selling out, because it's, maybe miscalculated. But it's not like it will always be miscalculated. And sometimes, maybe they'll eliminate the rest from the market, and then those will be scarce, like the Buzz Lightyear drop today. I mean, anything can happen. And that's the thing. Like, we're looking at a moment in time, but I think sometimes you have to step back and realize that the thing that's going to happen is the thing that you don't even think is going to happen. And I think that's what makes the app compelling is, who knows, in another year, you might have some people that own 100 of one collectible and they decide to burn off. Or maybe there's like a burning event and like 10 people who owns 50% of the stock burn off all theirs for points to leverage to get Yoda or something like that. And so we don't know how it's going to play out. And that's why, even though a lot of people are like, oh, I just want to collect grails and sell out of everything else, those other things that might not be looked up upon or as valued, who knows how those are going to play out in the future? And who knows, the accumulation of those MCP points that you get from lower budget items, that could be played out in the future to benefit you to get the higher ticket items. And I think that a lot of people don't know how MCP is going to be laid out.
Right.
But the thing that we all know, and at least us three, is they're going to tweak it to make it worthwhile. That's the thing, is they might not get it right the first time. There's already been, I think, 2 revisions, and it'll keep being tweaked. Why? Because, the user base might change in the future. The dynamics might change. Maybe they're giving too many points to, ultra rare comics. I don't know, right? We don't know that right now. And I think that you just have to kind of believe in the process in order to navigate through it and play your own game. So more about what you were asking. So from the kind of macro level, I think the sky is very bright, and I think that there's going to be a lot more investment in it, but it's still early. And so just to kind of latch onto that, I've been reaching out to a lot of the biggest corporations in the world because I'm working on an article about Web3. And a lot of people don't have named spokesperson now. They don't want to talk about what they're doing. That's how early we are. So like my article is going to have Meta, PwC, Adobe, IBM, Cisco. And I reached out to a lot of companies, and there's just not a lot of big people in the space that are willing to speak right now. And that to me is an indicator based on my experience in Web 2.0 and like the 2007, 2008 period where, it was still early. People weren't willing to talk about their strategy and how they felt about the landscape and the innovations that they're doing. So to me, that means that signals early, especially when companies especially the ones I named, are investing so much money in, yet are unwilling to talk about it yet. So VeVe specifically, I would say we're in a lull because of the state of the economy and because of just natural market adjustments and corrections, but nothing about the actual NFTs has changed. So the one you bought 6 months ago, for the most part, again, like last year, some of the tags have changed, but for the most part, nothing has changed. But I think part of the lull is also that user growth isn't catching up to the NFT mints / drop growth. So user growth is not growing fast enough to catch up to the amount of NFTs that are on VeVe. And therefore the money is being spread out more and more. But I think again, once, and we'll talk about this more, once the marketing and PR engine hit, then hopefully the user growth grows to align with the amount of NFTs that are being dropped, because we're only going to get more NFTs, which will dilute the market. And I think one of the things that Sean had said early on was that the cream will rise to the top, right? So especially with comics, the comics that are the most valuable in the physical world, we still assume that they'll be the most valuable in the digital world. And I think that with, we now have, you created your whole new list of the top comics in VeVe, Sean, that I'm sure you'll promote. And that list, it's going to I think it's mostly going to default to the physical comic list, and those comics will rise to the top. And a lot of these other comics that are being dropped that, I haven't even heard of some of these, they probably will be washed out unless they get saved by the MCP. No, but you know what? The funny thing is, who knows? Maybe if you get a lot of those comics, that yields a certain amount of MCP points that helps you get, a Journey into Misty 83 in the future. Like, we don't know strategically what you can do, but on the surface level, not interesting to me, right? And I think that, and I want to talk about this as well, is I feel like the more you collect, the more you acquire a certain taste and get more specific into what you want to collect. Like, I feel like now versus when I first started, I'm much more particular about what I'm looking for. Whereas, when there was less inventory and I was just kind of getting my hand into it, I'm like, oh, I'll take this and this and this. Now I'm not going through every drop. Sean, I know you aren't, and Spencer, I assume you're not as well, because maybe we don't love everything that's being dropped, or maybe we're satisfied with what we have, or we want more of what we have, more mints of what we have. So I think that things do change, and there is a benefit. So everyone who has been on for a while, there's a benefit of understanding historical prices and the market behavior, and that can really help you. Because when you first started, I'm almost at 1 year as a VeVe user, and when I first started, and I saw Captain America Secret Rare and Spider-Man Secret Rare, I was like, why is, Spider-Man so much more expensive? And at that time it was like $1,700. And I was like, that's really expensive, because I was new and I didn't have the price history. And it's hard to know exactly how things are going to play out. But now you look back and you're like, man, I should have just got a bunch of those and sat on it and they called it a day. But you wouldn't have known that. And I think a lot of people have those type of stories. Oh, when Tar was at retail, I should have bought X amount, right? But but there's a reason why you didn't. It's because it was new. You were kind of unsure. You just didn't know, right? Because if you knew, you would have done things differently. And so I don't really have any regrets. And clearly you can't complain if you got some of those in the early days. But I think that one of the big things that we're missing is the historical price history. I mean, if I think about all the collectible classes, the one that I would trust the most is the physical comic market, because they've been around for so many years. The Silver Age comics is like 60 years, right?
Yeah.
And you have such a rich price history of where they were and where they are. Whereas without a ton of sales data over a long period of time, it's hard to really know. And
Yeah.
I think that is one of the things that's going to be extremely valuable moving forward, is to get the previous sale history. I think that will really, really level it up, and having that data, I think, will help people make more informed decisions and not feel like they get burned, which is something that I think a lot of people have been outspoken about.
If we didn't have the data like on Go Collect to understand the sales of these physical comic books, I would have zero clue about value in terms of value or understanding the market. It's so important. It's so important. And I think people are starting to realize that, especially when we actually have access to this in a very simplistic way. It's going to be massive. It's going to be massive.
And I also think there's something about popularity. I mean, it's something that we talk about too, right? So when I think about what I buy, do other people want this? And how many people probably want this? And for the physical comic world, or just other collectibles, I think living in the auctions or being part of an auction gives you a sense of what the demands are. Like I was sharing with Sean, there was a Super Mario Brothers that was bid up to about over $16,000, and the average fair market value has been about 20,000 or so for that one. I think it's an 8.5 WADA A, and which is very high grade, and it's the grail of video games. And
this is the first Mario video game, just for context for everybody. It's the very first Super Mario first Nintendo Mario game. There we go. That's good.
Exactly. And so I was looking at it, I'm like, you're watching all the bids, and there's like 40 different bids for this thing. And then I shared with Sean, it was like the guy got it for like $20 and protected it. And he wrote in like a little letter, he's like, I can't believe it's already up to $10,000. And it was I just thought that was so powerful, that here's someone, and Sean's very good at this too, is he got in early and he just believed it, and he set it aside. Like, could you imagine Spencer or Sean, like, as a kid, you're like, I'm going to David Hewitt as a teenager and put 2 Mario Brothers aside and not touch it. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, if everyone did it, it wouldn't be worth as much. That's the reality, right? But it's still like, it's incredible. And like, maybe this next generation, and I think you guys are thinking about this too, is, maybe I need to put one aside, because we learned so much over the past, year of people who have held on to these for such a long period of time. They didn't know what it would be worth now, and they're reaping the rewards.
Definitely doing that for the AR glasses coming out for Apple. That's a good example of that.
We recently released an article on Go Collect on their blog. Dan, you got a chance to read it, right?
So good. Yeah. I mean, I read it
Thank
before it was published, and I was pretty blown away. I think that article serves as not only education, but a reference point. So if you, Spencer, Sean, even for me, like, if anyone wants to understand the power of digital IP, I mean, you just share that article, and there's your, Harvard degree once you finish it.
That's awesome. Thanks for saying that, man.
Yeah,
are there any points that stood out to you?
Yeah, I think the first 3 sections. The first section, I think, is really powerful. When Sean told me the story before it was written in this article, because it just shows that NFTs are highly underrated. The fact that for probably not a lot of money, you could get a Spawn Aoki NFT, and then those who owned one, and Sean had one at the Comic-Con event, would get access to a special event, not knowing that Todd McFarlane would be in attendance, and you'd get to spend some quality special time with him. To me, that's very compelling, because it just shows you all these people that overlook the NFT and kind of look down on it. They miss that opportunity to spend time with a top comic person of all time. And so I think of all the other opportunities that people are missing by overlooking, digital assets, because they feel like there's a stigma behind it, or they think it's a joke, or there's a lack of understanding. I think people fear what they don't understand. And I think there's still such a lack of education around NFTs and digital collectibles that, people are not getting involved or turning away from it, and they're missing these top opportunities. So that to me, that was the first thing, is NFTs are underrated. That was the first message that you get from that story and that part of the article. The second one is this part about Jose, struggling, during COVID to make money. He's like a top comic person. And because he created NFTs, he made over $1 million, and that really bailed him out. And I think it kind of, not only does it show the power of NFTs in terms of creating income for people, especially artists, which is really powerful. I think that's one of the biggest upsides and saving graces as part of this new digital revolution, as new ways for artists to make money, trying to eliminate the struggling artists that we hear about, musicians and artists and all sorts of people. It can be very hard for them to break through and establish a career. And even if they have a career, as Sean pointed out, like that doesn't mean you're going to get a cut of everything that you do either. In fact, Sean has talked, and you can mention this too, Sean, you've talked to a lot of artists that get no royalties when their NFT is published too. So like there is this gap between, there's this pay gap that they suffer from, but technology can really benefit them. And I think that's what they're noticing too, is that it's a new way, and they save money on shipping and designing it in other ways as well. So it's really created a boom for the creative, the artist, moving forward. And then the third thing is NFTs are creating collectors. One of my things that I always say is, NFTs and VeVe are minting new collectors. But I would say it's not even just creating new collectors, it's bringing people back into the hobby. And then to take it one step further is, now you're more privy and see that there are other collectible classes there too. So let's say you get into VeVe because you like Spider-Man and you just collect Spider-Man. Well, on that same platform, now you're seeing stamps, you're seeing other things that you might be interested in, comic books, all these different other things, and there'll be more and more and more. And so I think that I never in a million years thought I would collect a stamp, right? And so I think that's what's happened. And then you go into this rabbit hole like Sean and I have experienced, right? Like now it's like VHS tapes, it's video games, it's all sorts of other things. But it took that one experience that you had on VeVe, for instance, to kind of get you back to the hobby, get excited about it, and then to meet other people who are doing it too. Like if I didn't meet both of you, if I didn't meet other people in the community, maybe it's still an interesting investment, but it's definitely not as fun, because part of collecting is sharing and connecting with other people. And I think that's what a lot of people miss of being part of even this VeVe community is, I look at the NFTs and everything that's published as, content, and content is an enabler of conversation, and conversations lead to friendships and relationships. So I think that people forget about that, but that's, in my opinion, that's the most valuable output of all of this.
That's such a great point, Dan. I mean, we've met because of VeVe. And Spencer, you and I, we started this podcast with Kevin because of VeVe. And I just went to a wedding in England because of VeVe. So it's an incredible experience being able to meet so many wonderful people. And on top of that, just being able to be surrounded by these incredible collectibles that I personally just love and enjoy. It's such a blessing. What other catalysts do you think we'll need to see VeVe take it to the next level as far as total users? Because right now, I believe there's at least about 150,000+ active users. That's probably pretty conservative, but man, what are your thoughts potentially get to 1 million, like 3 million, even 5 million plus users?
Yeah, so my view on this has changed significantly between 2021 and 2022. In 2021, I would say the combination of OUP, MCP, cash out, foreign translations, and other things would really lead to the type of growth that we were all kind of hoping for. But now, after really investing time and thinking about the other collectible classes and what has led to a lot of capital being invested in those, I think really what it's going to come down to, and we know that this part is coming, be one-of-one auctions. I think a one-of-one auction, this is 100% how I feel. And I'll give you examples from other collectible classes as well of how this has panned out. So one-of-one auction on VeVe with, hopefully a Banksy or another celebrity like a Todd or some big artist that has brand recognition that people have heard of, hopefully internationally, because that creates the larger market. And then not just doing that, but marketing that to, get enough excitement around it that there's a $1 million bid. So now you have a digital property with a brand name attached to it on the platform that we're all part of, and you have a bid and a winning bid of $1 million or more. Because I really do think, especially in the NFT world, the $1 million mark's important because so many other NFTs have already hit the $1 million mark. So what's going to get people to VeVe is we need to at least hit that $1 million mark. And to do that, you need something very special, a one of one, and something where there's a lot of excitement around it and a lot of capital being invested in bidding it up to at least hit the $1 million. And not just that, that's to me is not enough. This one last component is really key, is marketing and promotion around that. All of the auction houses do it. It's the reason why people, not only look into an auction and want to bid in an auction, but now those investors are seeing all the other things in that auction as well. So people will come in, based on a headline, let's say in the New York Times, $1 million, NFT, one of one, sold on VeVe by Banksy, and it's this special, portrait or whatever it is. That's going to get people on VeVe, not just maybe to, send that person an offer who has it potentially, which does happen, but now they're privy and they see all the other NFTs on VeVe, and thus they bring all their investing friends, and that word of mouth, you get that top line of investor involved. And so if you think about others, so let's go over comics first, because this is the Comics and Crypto podcast. So headlines like this: first Spider-Man comic, Amazing Fantasy number 15, sells for a record 3.6 million. That was in the Hollywood Reporter. It was also covered in many, many media outlets. Again, it's not just about the sale with the big brand name, but it's also about the promotion of that. What we're core missing from the ability to scale this platform is marketing promotion. And I say that in the most credible way imaginable. Like, I went to school for marketing. Like, I've done over 60 campaigns, right? With real result. Like, I have case studies, right? So, but if you put in my name or my company's name into Google News, and then you put on VeVe's, I have way more than VeVe, which is ridiculous. It should never be like that. And I don't want to be negative, but that is a core thing we're missing. We need marketing and promotion around what we're doing, because what we're doing is there are literally, even past the one of ones, we have the James Bond movie ticket tied to a movie where there's already interest. So we need to promote and elevate the NFTs as the movie's happening, because that's the number one time to be able to promote the NFTs. Same with the Thor Love and Thunder. We have a set. You pre-brief, I can tell you exactly how to do the campaign. You pre-brief the reporters, hey, we're releasing that, we're doing this drop at this time, and this is what we're releasing. It's innovative. We have the first appearances of blah, 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 like, it was Loki and others, not Thor, but others. And you package that up for the media. And so I think that even with the one of ones, you need the promotion. You can't just, rely on organic for the rest of the company's history. You really need the marketing promotion. So that's the thing that's really, I really genuinely believe is missing. Two other examples. Action Comics number 1 sells for 3.18 million, Hollywood Reporter. Rare copy of the first Marvel comic sells for 2.4 million, New York Times. And the person who bought that, by the way, is the co-founder of Comic Connect. So one of the strategies that these CEOs and founders of the auction houses do is they literally buy their own stuff as a way to get that price high enough to then market their company to get more capital. But I'm not saying that David Yu should, buy his own one-on-one NFT, but this is the kind of deals you need to get people interested by showing big sales. How are you going to get really wealthy people on a platform if you're not signaling to them that the items on the platform are worth enough for them to care? Video games, you'll love these, Sean. Super Mario 64 sells for over 1.5 million, the most ever paid for a video game. Again, that headline was on CNN, very compelling. Like, it's hard not to at least check out, these video games, right? A Super Mario Brothers game sells for 2 million, another record for gaming collectibles. That's the Mario Brothers we were talking about in Nintendo, and that was New York Times. VHS, you know this one, Sean, and this is why VHS, in my opinion, hasn't taken off yet, is because, the biggest one that was covered was 75,000 for the Back to the Future. So it was Biff Tannen's Back to the Future tape, Topps Heritage graded VHS auction at 75,000. To me, that's like in its until we see like $1 million sales for VHS, like I think it's still very in its infancy. And then for NFTs, to kind of wrap it back to VeVe, CryptoPunk NFT sells for 2.7 million. And then the rest of the headline is YB's rare collectibles are resurging. And then the last one that's the massive that just came out is Beeple sold an NFT for 69 million. And that was covered on The Verge and other media outlets. Like, this is what's going to really, really change the game, in my opinion. And I put a lot of thought into this. I'm like, why isn't this, taking off the way we all kind of hoped? We thought it was going to be exponential, 10 million users by the end of this year, all these kind of things. And I really think you need this massive sale and then the promotion of that sale to really tip it, to be able to get the capital invested in VeVe.
And now a word from our sponsor. Looking to buy or sell physical comics? Then check out Elite Comics 11, Instagram's #1 community-powered comics sales page. Elite Comics 11 is our favorite place to safely buy and sell comics. They are a CGC and CBCS authorized dealer and sell a variety of comics from Silver Age Grails to modern day keys. Inventory is updated daily, and don't forget to check out their incredible almost daily live stream comic sales. The next time you're looking to buy or sell physical comics, make sure you turn to Elite Comics 11. Follow at Elite_Comics 11 on Instagram and see what all the buzz is about.
Yeah, I'm completely on board with you there. I would love to see a big sale, some big headlines. You've seen like David Yu on Twitter. I've seen him comment a couple times on when somebody posts that they've landed like a publication year of a collectible. He's like, I would love to buy this off you. I've seen that a couple times where he just comments on people's posts. Yeah, it was a lightsaber, or
no, it was for the 1977 Secret Rare.
That's what it was, the comic. Yeah,
which they actually ended up being sold recently to a friend of the podcast as well. Big shout out to Anthony. Congratulations.
Yeah.
But even those special mints, like, we need bigger dollar amounts and they need to be publicized. And that goes back to what we were saying earlier about sales data. When you have the sales data, you can show, oh, this thing was sold for a certain amount. And then, the following year kind of blew up and it sold for a lot more. So I think that the sales data is going to be really important. And then the promotion around it. Really, I mean, that's what's keeping us where we are, is we need marketing and promotion. And I know that they had the booth at Comic-Con. And, maybe I heard someone said there's like 20,000 more downloads. I don't know if that's going to be game changing. I think what's going to be game changing to get the max amount of investor capital in is going to be the one-on-ones. I think that's going to change. I think that's what's going to tip everything, because it has for all these other collectible classes. So why wouldn't it be for this? Like, when the Black Lotus Alpha sold for Magic the Gathering, and I couldn't find this, but when that sold for, maybe $1 million or more, then all the other Magic the Gathering cards become more interesting, especially the more Grail ones, right? So I think that I just think that you need that. It's like the 9.4 Journey into Misty 85. Like, it's only at 22,000 right now on Heritage. It's like, what is going on? Like, what? Like, someone's really going to just walk away with this thing.
It's one of the most it's unbelievable. So right now there's on Heritage auction, there's a 9.4 grade of Journey to Mystery 85, which is the first appearance of Loki. And the recent sale before that was, I think it was like 5 or 6 years ago, and it was around like 15, right? I think it was around 15.
Something about that, yeah.
I mean,
shocking.
Shocking. I mean, that should be, my opinion, and not financial advice, but I was expecting it to go at least 100. And the fact that they get if they get under 50, man, wow.
You got like 1,500 blue labels, right? Yeah. These are, these aren't signed. There's no restoration for a blue label, for anyone who doesn't know that. And then you have a character that's been in so many movies with a second season of his own show coming up. It's like there's something off there. So we can't figure it out.
To my knowledge, it's the second highest grade. There's one 9.4 and one 9.6, and that's it. So this is out of 2 highest grades in existence. And it's right now you can get around 20K, potentially around under 30, 40K. We'll see how, fingers crossed, but wow, yeah, insane.
But we don't know. Last minute, our funds, gentlemen.
Yeah, last minute.
Get together, boys. Should we start a DAO?
Yeah.
The Comics and Crypto DAO. That'd be actually pretty epic.
I'll tell you. I bet some dealer's gonna buy it and then jack the price up or something.
I mean, it's just wild to me. It's that low right now.
It's like you know what happened recently. someone's basically stole an AF-15 2.5 white pages for like a very low, I think it was 25K or something like that.
Wow.
And then immediately they sent it to Ali from Elite Comics 11 that sponsors this podcast, and jacked it, like they're going for $10,000 more than that.
And they sold it.
Oh, I don't know if it's sold,
Oh,
but
okay. Okay,
yeah.
gotcha. Yeah. That's so good.
Yeah.
I mean, it just happens on VeVe too, right? You snipe good deals and you just resell it. That's the
Exactly.
language that everyone understands watching this video. But to your point earlier about marketing, that's such a great point. I mean, being at Comic-Con and seeing it in person, some of the big questions took that people were asking us, like, how many people were excited about the collectibles and seeing the app in person and playing with the app in person? How many people did they sign up? Well, to be honest, mostly people that came by the booth didn't really process what was going on. They even watched the video that played on the big screen. There was an audience of like probably 300 people that watched it for the first time, and we were all pumped. Everyone knows VeVe, but people watched it like, wait, what is this?
Yeah.
They didn't really understand it. It couldn't process it because they still don't understand NFTs. What was the most important takeaway from Comic-Con was seeing VeVe next to Marvel.
Yeah.
That basically cemented their partnership. I mean, it speaks volumes about their collaborative efforts. And
that's
it
my biggest thing,
validated
Sean.
VeVe. Yeah.
Yeah, this is like a staple of my career. I call it branding by association. So if people haven't heard of you, but you associate with the brand that people have heard of, you build your brand because of that association. And it's kind of like my philosophy on how to build a career. Like, part of why I interview the people I do, part of why I work with the big Fortune 500 companies I work with, because I'm always thinking about branding. Branding has been like kind of core to what I've done ever since I had a blog on personal branding, in 2007. Right. And so I think that the associations are really important, but it's also, to be honest, it's like it's an easy pitch to say, hey, we're releasing an NFT of a character you've heard of before in partnership with Disney. So like, that's why, like, every time we don't do a promotional campaign, VeVe doesn't do a promotional campaign, part of me like dies inside, because I'm like, because when I do a campaign, it's so much harder because I'm not working with Disney. I can't say, Darth Vader is not going to, be part of my pitch. Right. And there's entertainment reporters at all the different outlets. And so if VeVe not only has the IP and Disney behind them, but NFTs and everything they're doing is very innovative. So there's the hook of having something innovative that aligns with a movie or a TV show that's coming out, and IP to back it up. It's like, I just feel like compared to what I do or what some of my peers do, like that should be somewhat of a layup.
Yeah, I mean, even like what we do with the company I work with, Apollo Entertainment, like we do press releases for every drop that we do. We reach out to as many outlets as we can, and we try to get, I mean, even though we're not necessarily like a big name, we don't have the association like Disney or Marvel, but that's kind of standard. That's just how you promote something.
I reach out to 100 to 150 journalists and producers for each campaign personally. And you know what? It works. Right. But again, it's like, it's a little bit harder to sell. Like, I have to be so much more creative because I don't have a brand like, Disney or Mickey or anything to leverage as part of that campaign. And hopefully, that all gets sorted out. But I do think that's one of the things that if that can get pumped up and there's some advertising and various things around that, especially things that educate people, like what Sean was saying, I think there is an education gap. I think that will really help. But again, I think part of the education gap is us using NFTs in all facets of culture and society. So I think some things that we're talking about will naturally happen or very organically because it'll just be more part of our society. So people won't think twice, but also that's not an excuse not to do some marketing promotion to spread the awareness and do that education, because we're not going to wait, years for people to catch up. We need to help people get to where we are.
Yeah. And I don't think VeVe even needs to spend that much money to be doing this. Like a lot of these outlets will pick up a story just because it's Marvel or just because it's DC or just because it's Disney.
When they start endorsing it and promoting it a lot more as well, it's going to be a huge impact for the VeVe platform. Yeah,
Sean, and I think for traditional collectors, it's like, what can these NFTs do that my physicals can't is part of the mentality, because, it's no longer, if I put money in, I can't put it out. So I think it's more of like, what's special, I'll just keep my physicals. So I do think when things get more sophisticated in terms of utility and value, I think that will help. And I do think, and I do agree with you. Yeah. I mean, when AF-15 drops, it's very hard to ignore that, especially at a $6.99 drop price. I mean, it is like, I'm telling all my friends and family on that. Like that to me is like, you can't, you're almost like a bad person not to tell people to try the drop. It is. I mean, because it's such a low cost for such potential upside that it's nuts.
Even $14.99, if it was like Star Wars, it doesn't matter. Such a great level of entry.
Yeah, my gut is
do you think it's going to drop? You think it's gonna be more than $6.99, or do you think?
I think it's gonna be $6.99. I think Marvel is at $6.99, and I think that Star Wars, that comic was higher because of Star Wars. Because I think that, I think that department, just places more value on how they want to sell it. So I think when VeVe's working with Marvel and Disney and Star Wars, I think they're a little bit separate, even though they're all connected in a way. And I think that out of Star Wars, they want to charge a certain amount, whereas Marvel, they want to standardize it for the $6.99. That's my assumption. I don't know that for a fact, but there's a reason why all the Marvels have been $6.99 and Star Wars hasn't.
That's a solid presumption. I agree with that. Yeah.
So Dan, what have you been collecting recently in the physical world?
So I'll just tell you kind of overall IP that I like, because I think that's
Dan, you collect physicals?
Yeah, I have them to my
for
left.
Months.
We're gonna be it'll be like show and tell in a second. So just overall though, like what did I like as a kid, and what I think, what do I place value on? Like I love Batman. In fact, most of my comics would be Batman type comics, but sadly, Batman #1 is like hundreds of thousands of dollars. It breaks my heart because I love the Joker, the Dark Knight, as you know, Sean, is my favorite movie. I have memorabilia from the Dark Knight. That's kind of a new thing that I've collected. I have the cards that Joker uses, and I also have one of the burnt bills when he lights all the money on fire in that scene, which is I mean, I love that movie.
That's epic.
So yeah, I really like that one, and I got that.
Are you a Batcow holder?
I am, but we'll see what happens with that. With Sean, when Sean bought the Pirates of the Caribbean coin, that inspired me to get. I'm like, wow, like I should get my favorite movie, like memorabilia from my favorite movie. So Sean has definitely influenced me like a lot. But I think in terms of IP, it's I think my core is Batman, and Ninja Turtles. I had every single action figure you can imagine when I was growing up. Like my mom like laughed when I was like, yeah, I have the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1 comic, and I won it by $1 in the auction. Sean, it was wild. Like these auctions get so crazy, and like you just don't know how it's going to play out. So that was definitely the most fun auction I've ever been a part of, because it was literally $1. So so I love Ninja Turtles. Star Wars. It's not like I'm the biggest Star Wars fan, but I know that this age group loves Star Wars. So the value to me is there. In every collectible category, Star Wars does well. So I'm a little bit more as an investor for Star Wars, where, my childhood was like Ninja Turtles and Batman, and Marvel a little bit more because of the MCU and just all the excitement and value over the years. Like a little bit more of an investor, like my, in terms of like attachment, it's more of like a, Batman and Ninja Turtles, I would say. And I also collect Disney for obvious reasons too. Again, like the philosophy is collect what's popular, right? Because when you think about popularity, what you're talking about is demand and buyers, right? And so again, this is just kind of doing my data analysis, seeing the market where, what has TV show. Like part of the thing, Sean, and Sean, this is for Ninja Turtles, it used to be it was action figures. But in order to sell the action figures back then, there's a whole documentary on this. They had to have a TV show.
It's so good.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I think about that a lot, is like who has TV shows and media, and this is how you guys use spec too. And whatever has a lot behind it. Like I'm really bullish on Nintendo after that article was shared that they're going to have their own studio and they're going to have their own kind of MCU. So I think Mario, Zelda, Massive. And maybe Kirby, because Kirby is actually, if you look, I was doing research on like what's the most popular, Nintendo characters, and Kirby's actually like number 3 or 4. Like I was shocked. Like I liked Kirby, but I wasn't like that.
Kirby Air Ride was like one of my favorite games growing up.
Yeah, I mean Zelda. I love Zelda. There was a cartoon, a Zelda cartoon that I really liked, but I like barely remember it, but I remember that they had that too. And Ninja Turtles, the TV show, is unbelievable. Yeah. So it's like what are the core IP of our culture that people love that will live longer than the grandchildren we don't even have yet? that's kind of this philosophy. It's like, what's going to outlive me?
I love your mindset, Dan, because that's how, and Spencer's the same way. I consider myself a collector with an investor mindset. And if you basically, I very rarely will invest in anything that I don't truly love, but I understand that there's ROI as well. So it's things that I love that also I understand the ROI, and that's awesome because I'm romantic. I love falling in love with my investments. I admit it.
Well, especially once you get to certain dollar amounts,
Yeah.
you can't. It's very hard to not, and especially if you have a family, it's really hard to not look at them as at least somewhat of an investment. It's just very hard not to. So I thought I'd choose 3 of my comics to show, and there's a reason behind each one to make this fun. It's the first time I've ever done it, so I'm doing it for you guys. I love.
Yes.
So the first one is one of my favorite characters ever. I'll give you a hint. I think I already told you the 3 that I'm sharing, but this character saved Marvel, and most people don't know he saved Marvel, and he's going to be in an upcoming movie. That's all I'll say.
Tomb of Dracula.
Boom.
Number.
This man.
Look at that.
Yeah, I love this cover. It's very similar to the Moon Knight cover too, but man,
So this-
Blade is just
What grade is that?
9-0. White pages.
Wow.
Yeah, I had for characters I really like, and
So
it's
it's Tomb of
actually pretty scarce. I think there's only maybe
It's a series
3,500 of
comic.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Tomb of Dracula number 10, the first appearance of Blade. And that's what the 9-0 is what Dan has. And what's really cool about that comic as well, I think there's only one, there actually is one 9.9, which is
Yeah.
absolutely insane for a Bronze
Crazy.
Age comic. And that with that kind of FA.
So the next comic is one that Sean got me hyped on, and one that's been released in VeVe, but it doesn't look like this. So it has young superheroes. That's what I'll say. What do you think it is, Spencer? Poor
Young
Spencer.
Avengers #1.
Yes, you got
ding,
it.
ding, 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 ding. Look at that.
This
This
That's
Wizard
is
World
awesome.
tell
There we
people
go.
what this is, Sean.
So this is Young Avengers #1, the Wizard World variant. So the cover A, which is the common on VeVe, then they created what's called a director's cut, which is another variant. And it's basically a combination of cover A and this one. So you see like the full sketch, and then halfway through, you see a blend of just the actual sketch like this, which is basically a interpretation of the rare on VeVe as well. But this comic specifically, this variant was given away at the Wizard World Comic-Con back in 2005. And, people didn't really understand it. I mean, people were just tossing them out. And there's only a few left. There's only a few that were given out, and there's only a few left. And it's by far the most scarce and rare variant of the Young Avengers. And yeah,
And
so
we
congratulations.
think
Dan.
that there's going to be a movie at some
And it's-
point.
Oh yeah,
and it makes
we've already
sense.
seen FAs of a lot of those characters. I mean, those characters are have already been introduced in the MCU, including Kate Bishop. And that's what Dan was mentioned earlier. The secret rare doesn't reflect all the FAs, which I personally feel is missed by Marvel. Again, this is no reflection on VeVe.
Completely
This is
agree.
100% Marvel, but that was a huge miss on their part to not. I mean, they didn't incorporate Kate Bishop on there. Come on, guys, she has her
Even in
own
the
show.
description on
Yeah.
the app, they miss a lot of them too.
Exactly. Yeah, it's really weird. I don't get it. I really don't. I mean,
But I think, Sean, the brilliance in you specking on this is that some of these characters have already appeared in the Marvel Universe, A.
Yeah.
And B, the Avengers brand is so powerful. It's $1 billion brand, and they're going to have 2 more Avengers movies they just announced. And of course, if Marvel wants to appeal to the younger demographic and become relevant, and you can't do the same thing for the next 50 years. So of course, a young Avengers makes a lot of sense because the Avengers brand's strong and they need to appeal to the next generation. So to me, when those dots were connected, I'm like, yeah. And so that's another one that I got. And then this one, okay, let's see. There's been 2 movies. He's I think he's not in the MCU yet. He's been in 2 Sony movies. Is that correct, Sean?
yes.
And just funny. And it's one of my favorite actors. He's actually one of the people that I most want to interview out of anyone, which means nothing to you, but he's he's very sarcastic. He might be the most sarcastic person on earth.
To clarify, it wasn't with Sony, it was a Fox.
A Fox, okay. So it was non-Marvel.
Okay.
Boom.
There it is. Yeah.
There we go.
I was gonna say he's a big fan of chimichangas.
Yeah, that just dropped. The thing is, they got me on that one because I won all the mighties, and I'm like, all right, I don't even like this thing, but I'll get it.
I actually I forgot you got this one. That's amazing.
Yeah, I
What a
actually
great
got
guy.
I got a good deal on a bid, but yeah, no, it's very cool, and the thing is, there's a lot of them, but it's also goes back to what we were saying earlier, Sean, about popularity.
Popularity,
The
Yeah.
character's
I mean-
so popular, with between the cosplay, between all the movies that are coming. We know there's gonna be a third movie.
They just dropped the first two on Disney Plus, which is massive, and I've already watched
yeah.
them both twice. Like it's him coming to the MCU.
The casting
is
is
going
a
to change
10-star.
everything. Yeah, it's going to change everything.
And then once
I-
you start pairing him with all the other X-Men and oh my,
Huge.
it's like it's gonna be
It'd be
nuts.
so
Can you
good.
imagine like him and Doctor Strange on the same screen, like the sarcasm and it's going to be so fun to see that dynamic. It's going to be a blast. I can't wait to see what characters from the current MCU are going to be combined with his sarcasm and violence. It's going to be wild. It's going to be crazy.
Yeah, I agree. And so the next collectible class, this is 100% because of VeVe, of course. I just chose one of them. I have 13. That's Bane.
That's so
One of the
nice.
rarest ones. Randy has it as well.
I would not be
And
surprised to see that one drop on.
yeah, I love Bane. I mean, he's definitely one of my favorite villains, and his comic is accessible relative to the other villains. But yeah, I think that's for sure the FA on VeVe. I think it'd be ridiculous if they didn't do that. And I think it's going to be great. I'm really looking forward to that one. So
That's one of the black and white statues, right?
yep,
Yeah.
that's one of the 100.
It's inevitable.
A
in
lot
my
of them, if
opinion.
you look on eBay, a lot of them are broken though, so it took a while to find the right one. Yeah,
Nice.
this one, Penguin. A lot of the villains are scarce for the black and white collection. Yeah, and then something else I got into because of Sean, he gets me into everything. Is this guy?
There we go.
Oh,
That's the penguin one.
damn.
Oh, I have that in the closet.
Yeah.
No, that's the scarcest one. David Yu even says he wants one of those, the penguin. How much it with this is what 3,000 of them? Something
Yeah.
like that.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's
It's cool.
3,500.
I love that one too. It's compared to Bane, it's smaller, but I just think the villains are cool because 90% of all the statues are of Batman. So the villains really stand out. And we know what this is. I don't know if Sean has his near him. Oh, there it is. So the case for this is, I mean, I even had I
It's like a
never had
mirror
that
image.
many PlayStation games when I was living in my parents' basement playing them, but but this is one of the games that I played and I was terrible at, and my friends would come over and beat it, and I would just watch. And honestly, even watching it was fun.
Yeah.
Like if you're really it was a tough game, but it's just like a fun, cool game, and it was so innovative at the time. So
Yeah.
when Sean's like, "Oh, we're getting into video games," and Grand Theft Auto is going for this price and everything on eBay, I'm like, well, everyone knows this game. It's part of all my friends' childhood. So, risk reward, it's like, why not?
Yeah.
And then the thing is, and you know this, Sean, is the second you in Spencer, the second you get it, once you get one thing, then you go through not only a rabbit hole, but you start to learn a lot because you have something, right? Like if you don't have an NFT, how much are you going to really research NFTs? But once you're like at least somewhat invested, you're going to start to kind of go down this rabbit hole and learn as much as you can. So like, and Sean knows, especially over the past year, I know like everyone in all these different communities now. Why? Because, once you own the collectible, you become part of the community. Once you own a VBFT, you become part of the community. And so I think it only does you a good service by meeting all the people in the hobby. Like, why wouldn't you? And so I think Sean's done a great
The
job.
hell
on
out
that
of me,
too.
Dan. Like
I do it for everything.
I don't know how you find time in the day to do all of that, man. You're unbelievable, and you're the king of DYOR, like the absolute king. The
Wait, what's
past year-
DYO? What is
do
that?
your own
Do your
research.
own
Do your
research.
research. Over the past year
Yeah,
since
it's been
August, you
wild.
got into VeVe. You've made unbelievable purchases for physical comics, and it's been so much fun, man, to talk to you about comics every day. And man, it's so impressive the knowledge that you've gained in the past year. I mean, it's probably honestly, I would say you probably have the bandwidth of like 5 year. Someone's been doing this for about 5 years. I mean, I see it as, yeah.
What's crazy, Sean, is I think about this for everything. So
Yeah.
before I became an author, I'm like, I need to meet every single author ever, right? And so that's why I know all the authors. Same everything, marketing, human resources, like all these different areas I play in. It's who are all the key players, My goal is to meet all these people. Like even for my business, I'm like, every single vendor in my space, I want to do business with before I die. Like this is just my mentality because I know from 15 years that putting that effort in, meeting all these people, it always pays off. It is, that investment is priceless. And so I think of who's all these people in the ecosystem, bit by bit, I'll meet him, her, all these different people. And it's almost like putting a puzzle together, you know, like Sean's a piece of the puzzle, Spencer's a piece of the puzzle, Randy's a piece of the puzzle, David, like all these people are a part of the puzzle, and you're trying to create that puzzle because once you do and have something finished, you're at a huge advantage, and it's fun to do so. Why wouldn't you? We all have something in common with each other, so why wouldn't you express that? You know.
Yeah.
So the other thing I want to show you, this is the newest one, and Sean saw when I was bidding on this. This was fun.
Yeah.
But this is very cool. This is the only top one I have of anything.
Unbelievable.
And so if you can see, can you see it? Yeah. So that's a 9 and 8.5, both out of 10. And this is the only one that exists, especially with the watermark. So it's just very cool. It's the first Batman movie with Jack Nicholson as Joker. And it's just iconic.
I would not be surprised in the near future when they start labeling these as FAs.
God, is it cool?
Like FAs for, you know, for VHS tapes or for films or for shows, you know, having first appearance label on there makes total sense. And it's funny because you just mentioned, you know, how I've inspired you on certain collectibles as well. Dan, you've inspired me as well. Once Dan got that purchase, I said, okay, well now, and then I saw this come in the market. Yeah. So I had to do it as well. So I'm really happy with this one.
The thing about that cover, and I love your Pirates of the Caribbean one too.
Oh,
this is why you need to be attached to the market.
There you go.
Yeah, you gotta be in the market because you never know what's for sale, when it's gonna sell, how much you could get it for. You just don't know all of that.
yeah.
And so it is fun that's why I spend time in auctions and analyzing, because I'm always like curious about what things are selling for and who's doing what and what you gotta, like anything else, if you want to be successful, you have to eat and breathe it. Like it's like what I say when I'm on like sales calls. I'm like, you could work with all these other companies, but I literally live and breathe this. This is 7 days a week. Like I'm fully on board for the rest of my career. Do you want to work with someone like that? Or do you want to work with someone who's maybe just trying to get a paycheck or whatever? That's how you can be successful, especially if you're not, you know, it's like David versus Goliath. David wins by living and breathing what they do, what he does.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking of which, what have your thoughts been over the past year for the collective space? Have you noticed anything specific that you'd like to point out?
Yeah, I mean, first off, as a kid, I got into comics. I actually read the comics. they weren't, honestly, I don't even know if CGC was created back then. And if they were, I didn't know that existed. I didn't know what an FA was. I didn't know any of that back then. I wasn't like, oh, you know, because when I got the Batman Nightfall series, it wasn't like, oh, wow, like maybe I should get Bane's first appearance comic. Like I didn't know any of that. I didn't really care about it. You're a kid. You probably don't care as much about that stuff as a kid. I mean, maybe people growing up now will actually, right? Because the accessibility of NFTs, maybe, you know, as a kid, you're like, oh, I now know what a first appearance is. And you ride that out for the rest of your, you know, career in life. And so I think that could be something, I mean, I just thought of this out loud, but that could be something that, you know, is more on people's minds as they're collecting, you know, not just collecting to read, maybe in AR on VeVe, but also like now you're more educated about the whole collectible space at a younger age, which gives you a huge advantage versus me who like, you know, I'm not saying reading them's not good, but I mean, I'm just saying like, if you have that additional component in education, hugely helpful, of course. So I got in with the Batman Nightfall series. I still own them all. Actually, I never sold any of them. And my favorite was Batman 497. Do you know which one that is?
Batman 497.
I'll give you a hint. The Dark Knight Rises. Bane breaks Batman's back.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we've talked about this one. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I love that one. I love the whole series because, you know, the whole premise was, you know, Bane, they were building Bane up to be like such a big bad guy in the DC universe. And he let out all the other villains. So each issue was like poison, you know, Batman had to go through Poison Ivy, you know, and then it got to a point where Batman was weakened and then Bane broke his back. And then that created that new Batman, one who was like in gold. I forgot his name. He's like in gold and played, and he was like Psycho. And then that was sent on Night Quest. And then the last series was Batman took down the new Batman. Bruce Wayne took down the new Batman, and then Night's End was the last part of that, and that's when he took Bane down. So that whole series is brilliant and awesome, and that really got me excited about comics in the beginning. And then there was obviously a long period of time when I wasn't collecting any of those comics. And then my first comic back was Vengeance of Bane #1, Bane's first appearance, and I bought it from the sponsor of this podcast. So that was pretty cool to kickstart the physical collecting again with the thing that I didn't know of when I was growing up, but the same character.
And now a word from our sponsor. Looking to buy or sell physical comics? Then check out Elite Comics 11, Instagram's #1 community-powered comics sales page. Elite Comics 11 is our favorite place to safely buy and sell comics. They are a CGC and CBCS authorized dealer and sell a variety of comics, from Silver Age Grails to modern-day keys. Inventory is updated daily, and don't forget to check out their incredible, almost daily live stream comic sales. The next time you're looking to buy or sell physical comics, make sure you turn to Elite Comics 11. Follow at elite_comics11 on Instagram and see what all the buzz is about.
Big shout to Elite Comics 11.
I call him the Yoda. He's Yoda of physical
I love
comics for
that.
sure.
That's
Just of
amazing.
how he communicates. Like, if obviously you've interviewed him and you've done Twitter Spaces with him, but like I message him and he just comes off like a Yoda type figure, like the all-knowing man.
Just so
It's pretty cool.
Yeah,
good guy, great business guy for sure.
Yeah.
So going back to your question, that kind of gives you context about where I was, where I am, and especially compared to last year. I think the one thing that I didn't think of last year or overlooked was getting multiple of the same item. I think that to me is something that I think about much more regularly now, especially if I really like the item and see value in it. I think that because, and this is not financial advice or anything, it's just like how I compare and contrast both years. Last year was like, I just want to get certain sets and certain items, and now it's like, I'm going to be more particular. The second thing is what I've talked about, and I'll give you a great example, something that will resonate. I focus on popularity more than scarcity. And I know Sean's on board with this, because popularity, again, it's like demand, it's more buyers, right? It's easier. It means your collectible is more liquid, which it has value. And, I listen to a lot of people who are like, oh, I'm going to hold on to this for life and everything like that. And like, you saying that in the moment, but you don't know what the future holds for you. You don't know about healthcare bills. You don't know about expenses. You don't know about who you're going to marry. You're not going to know. Maybe your kids don't like comics or NFTs. Like, you don't know. There's so much you don't know. And then like, what if you die in 2 years? Like, how's your family going to deal with like these NFTs that they don't know? So there's all these things come up that people might not think about, because in the moment, you're not thinking about it, right? You're like, hope to live and all this stuff. So yeah, I think that people have to be a lot more thoughtful about like what's more liquid, especially if they're going to keep something in the longer term. I think that's really important. And an example is some golden age comic books, even though they're very scarce, some could have like 30 copies. They sell for like $1, right? Because there's no reason why they should sell for more. There's no interest from buyers around it, right? There's no TV show. There's nothing around it. It's a nothing. For the most part. Maybe it means something to someone, but not enough people. Whereas some books, like the New Mutants 98, there's thousands of them, like maybe like 30,000 of them, or who knows how many, like a lot.
Yeah.
Yet, some of those books, the 9.8s are still going for at least $1,500. So that just shows you there's popularity. If there was no popularity, that book wouldn't go for like anything. Much like my other example. The third thing is be patient. I think the thing is, it's very easy to get excited, to go for every drop, to just get everything, right? Because it's right in front of you. And there is some like gambling aspect to it, right? Like there's that like rush that you get. But I think especially now, like with AF15 coming, it's like, do I want to get this or do I want to save because I know what's coming? And honestly, they give us enough hints, so we pretty much know what's coming. It's not like Hope 1 is not going to come. It's not like Captain America comic. Like, we know what's coming because we know what Marvel comic rails there are in the physical world, and they're going to be in the digital world. So like, if you plan to get those, wouldn't it be good to have more gems instead of fewer gems? So I think that patience in a world where people want instant gratification is extremely valuable. And this is not just on VeVe, this is just life, really. I think the patience aspect's really key. And then going back to what I was saying before that I like to hone in on because it's overlooked, even though it's right in front of all of us, is these NFTs are a means to build friendships, right? Like I might go, I'm going to Boston Comic-Con with your buddy.
Yeah,
Cherry
big
charts.
shout out to Brendan Cherry.
Brendan Cherry.
Big shout.
Right? I've never been to a Comic-Con. He might not have either, but because of this ecosystem, we're doing it.
Yeah.
I might go to Comic-Con
possibly-
New York.
New York, yeah.
No, I did what you said. I submitted.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, but who knows what's going to happen? The reality is, again, these are a means to establish the network. When you're 90, you're not going to be like, I wish I had 50 more Todds. Maybe you will. I mean, if you're crazy, maybe you will. But a lot of it is, hey, look at all these people I've met and these experiences that we've shared through having the NFTs, the metaverse conversations, experiences like Comic-Con, et cetera. So that's an important thing to put in perspective. And then the last thing I would say is, I think people should, especially right now in like a down market, be more particular in what you collect. Right. And so like, if you think about, like, let's say you were going for like a comic book right now, a physical comic book. And there's one that's, better or has white pages or is a higher grade, like maybe now is a better chance to be more particular and more decisive about what you're going to collect. And VeVe, maybe it's you skip drops until there's something that you really want, and then you get 2 of those. Like, so it's, I think the more you have, especially the more particular you become. That's how I've analyzed my behavior. The more I get, the more particular I become because I already have a lot. So like to add to that, it's got to be really interesting. And I don't know, is it the same for both of you as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I've definitely gotten a lot more particular over the past year. I'm not going for nearly as it was also different. Like you can make money on literally every drop in the beginning.
Yes.
So it is a little different from that perspective too, but also it's like, now I have 50 plus sets. So now I'm being more particular. Like I feel like I'm at a point where, I have enough sets where like I'm comfortable for the rewards that I could potentially get for MCP. So now I'm more focusing on what I actually want.
People who own 50 plus sets is very, very low out of the total active users right now. So something that I never really thought much about, Spencer and I, we didn't really think much about in the very beginning was the power of liquidity. We were focusing so much on low mint secret rares that we have quite a collection of low mint secret rares and we're really proud of that collection. That being said, and
I wish I just bought like 200 MC1s,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I spending, you could have bought say level of entry 5 gems for an MC1 common. You spend $1,000 on that. You could have got 200. And, at one point the floor was 1,000 gems for one. So that's
crazy.
a $200,000. Can you imagine that? That's crazy.
It's tough because again, it's like the secret rare feels so much more special. So you want to lean to that because you're one of maybe 500 versus potentially the commons being better for liquidity. So it's really hard. I mean, obviously the best thing to do is do both if you can.
Yeah.
But who knows? Who knows how it's going to play out too?
Yeah.
Like that secret rare, if there's burning, then maybe there's only 100 secret rares of some comics in the future. Who knows?
And I'm happy you brought that up, like especially burning. I mean, can you imagine if there's an incentive burning for land, like for the VeVe-verse?
I think there will be.
If that happens, like we could see insane numbers being burned, like for ridiculous collectibles if the incentives are strong enough.
I mean, if you really think about it, if there's burning, if all these things happen and the user base grows faster than the amount of mint somehow, you potentially, with MCP included and how they could do points, you could make the case for almost every collectible and set on the platform. You could. Because again, it's I use this collectible, maybe it's not to make a certain amount of money, but it helps me get into a drop that makes me money, or it helps me get closer to getting this piece of land. So like everything potentially can be leveraged for different things.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think that MCP can maybe create a kind of a baseline to support the collectors so that, that things might not go under retail as much.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're going to make it good. They're going to make it good. There's so much on the line to make it good.
Yeah. What's interesting too, we talked about this yesterday. I was on a live stream yesterday and we talked about the numbers may not match up on the blockchain compared to VeVe. We still don't really know for sure. And we're still figuring that out. It does happen if the numbers don't match up and they're way off. I know Spencer, you've had your thoughts on this. But either way, I think there's a strong possibility that they could add tremendous value for lower mints just through MCP. They could say the first 100 available mint numbers will have, you get 3x bonus points for secret rares or something ridiculous. So it's like, okay, well, there you go. They just added insane value. They're already doing that with the top 5%.
Yep.
So who's to say they could, so there's plenty of options for them to make up for, whatever happened with that situation.
Yeah.
MCP.
I'm really excited in general for them to reward collectors more and not as much the flippers and, people who are just trying to make a quick buck. And they've done a little bit of that with like some airdrops if you own a certain collection or if you own a full set. But yeah, I think that there's still a lot of room for them to really reward the collectors that are holding on. Like if you bought a Todd in the very beginning and you haven't moved it from your wallet in like 2 years, like I think you should get something for that. Like, because it really shows that you have those diamond hands and you're a believer in the platform, you're a believer in the collectible. Like I would love to see some more rewards for things like that. And I think with MCP, they can really, really do some cool stuff.
That's such a great point, Spencer. Such a great point. I love that. And, to kind of piggyback from the conversation earlier, we're talking about liquidity, stacking certain collectibles or even commons. But something that I've come to realize as well, and Dan, you've been a real advocate for this, having the opportunity to rent the collectibles, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I'm going to use this as an example because I'm very passionate about them, are the lightsabers, which are 50% of the retail right now. It's massive IP. There's an article by Time Magazine. By the way, 8 years ago, this article was written. It's back in 2014. And they talked about 10 million lightsabers are sold every year. So you can imagine there's probably way more every year sold.
Oh,
you can
yeah.
imagine.
Big time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So massive IP. You have an opportunity, and this is not financial advice to anybody, but 50% off retail right now for these lightsabers that are very limited. If millions of people want them. So yeah, I mean, people talk about, oh, I wish I could have gotten involved with Todd. It's a bummer, you didn't have that level of entry at the time, but there's still other opportunities on VeVe. And with these lightsabers, that's the first collectible I've seen that actually feels like, okay, there's strong utility already created just because of what it represents and what it can do. David Hughes already talked about it on a stream with VeVe Magic that they anticipate, connecting other collectibles, and then you can use those lightsabers with other collectibles, but, potentially using them in AR. The 3D design and the sound design and just the look itself is very impressive. And I absolutely can be used in AR. We've made some videos just to kind of spoof and have fun with it to show what it can do. But yeah, I'm crazy bullish on those lightsabers, guys. Yeah. So anyways, I'll stop talking about the lightsabers.
But I think what you're saying is like anything's possible.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of things are still being tested, right?
Yeah.
We're still in this experimental phase. That's why not everything's getting an airdrop, because they want to make sure they do it right and are fair about it. But eventually, and I think we'll always kind of be experimenting because there'll always be new features and they're going to tweak, just like MCP might not be perfect when they first release it, but it'll be tweaked and there'll be badges. If you've been listening for like a year now, they've hinted at so many different things, but I think that in the moment, people forget a lot about those things because they're concentrating on what's in front of them.
Yeah.
But a lot of things are hinted. I mean, they're just shoving it in your face. And so like, you got to pay attention to what they say and what they do. And then also, you just don't know what's going to happen. Like we all, everyone tries to predict things. So, I try also to make believe maybe there isn't any utility ever coming. Again, I think there will be, and they've said it, but I try and make believe there. And like, if I thought a collectible will never have utility, would I still get it? So I ask myself those type of things too. And that's kind of a little bit more of a conservative mindset. As in like partners doesn't really need utility to be partners in a sense.
Right.
Now, again, it could have that, but if it never had that, would you still get partners?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's one thing I think about.
Yeah, exactly. That's such a good point. And I mean, even I think, we think about individual utility for the individual collectibles, but in the grand scheme of things, MCP is going to bring utility to all the collectibles, which is really powerful. But yeah.
Well, there's MCP utility. There's IP utility, there's VeVe utility, and then there's community utility.
Yeah.
Community utility, you have a partners, you have something, you have access to this, or you get 20% off at some barber shop or whatever it is.
Yeah.
That's an additional utility on top of it. And so I think the stuff could eventually add up and make things very interesting. But again, we don't know exactly what they're going to want to do. And I think that this is part of what makes David Yu's job fun. He gets to constantly troll us.
Yeah.
And
going back to-
I think it's hilarious.
And Dan, going back to what you
Absolutely.
said about like experimenting, obviously we all wish that we were in a bull market right now, but some of the best building happens in a bear market when there aren't the big expectations of all the investors. Oh, everything needs to go up right now. Like, this is the ideal opportunity for them to really test some new stuff out, try some things, and see where it goes. Obviously, not everything's going to work, but you don't have those like kind of investor expectations that you normally have during a bull market, which this is the time to figure that stuff out. So I'm excited to see what happens over the next 2-3 years. Because I think this bear market will probably last a little bit longer than we all expected to, unfortunately.
Yeah, and especially the new drop system. I'm really interested to see how that. I've never been part of a drop system like that, and maybe you guys have, but I'm curious to see what that experience is like, because when I've told some people, they're like, oh, maybe that's not as fun as being able to press the button at the same time, but maybe it doesn't matter. So I don't know. I think we're all kind of sharing these experiences together, and I do believe that this company compared to other companies takes community feedback pretty seriously and evolves. Now, again, like some of the things, it's almost like you have, taking feedback's important, but you also have to have kind of a pulse on what the collectors want, kind of this David Yu layer. What makes David Yu compelling is there are a lot of people like him in the world that have like warehouses and have a lot of money and have one of one like priceless collectibles, but how many are public? I can't count like any, right? Like at his level. And so I think his like calm, cool collectedness and like his joy mixed with being able to own this and be public about it makes him an incredibly compelling figure in that respect, right? And I think that he himself, one of the things that he did that I thought was the coolest thing was the business cards he gave out at Comic-Con. 500 people? And that became an NFT, and I think the floor is like 3,000 or something like that, 2,500.
Yeah,
man, is that what's so crazy about that is not only is it the first VeVe NFT, IP related drop, not only is it his business card and kind of personal for all those people who were there, but if you think about it, potentially whatever you paid to go to Comic-Con, you got reimbursed by getting one of them. I mean, it was so genius and such a small little thing, but I think it was brilliant. And that's the type of person that you want to lead this type of company. You want someone who lives and breathes this. And I do think that in his head, he's like, I want to create more David Yu's in the world. Like, I do think that that's how someone like that thinks.
I'm so glad that you brought that up, because I mean, let's talk about the sign first, a quick second. There's only 500 made, right? Some of them went online, and some of them were sold for $5,500. $5,500, a logo, just a 3D logo NFT of VeVe. What company can sell their name, just an NFT of their logo for $5,500? Not many. I don't even think Yahoo, people would buy it for Yahoo.
Well, a lot of store brands are cheaper. Actually, store brands are almost always cheaper, right? Like if you go to Costco, Kirkland is cheaper than the other brands that are more well known. Same with CVS brand. When they sell products that are similar to the other ones they do from established brands, like they try and undercut because they get most of the profit, whereas they have to do profit sharing with those brands.
Yeah.
Right. But VeVe, the fact that they get a premium is pretty interesting. And I think it's cool that you brought that up, because I don't think a lot of people recognize that their brand is already strong within this community.
Very strong.
And so once the mainstream goes, and the thing is too, it's like, it's so tough. It's like, do I, psychologically, do I flip this to get the liquidity because we know AAF 15 is coming? But wait a second, why are they doing this? And, they don't need to get approval to add utility to this. Mm-hmm. So maybe they have some sort of like CEO club with that NFT, and you get 30 minutes with David Yu at every single Comic-Con for the rest of your life or something.
Yeah.
So and because it's only 500, so it's somewhat manageable, especially because only a percentage will actually go to the Comic-Con. So it could be interesting. It could be really interesting. And I think people might be overlooking it a little bit, even though the value is still really high though. So I don't know.
Yeah. It's very special.
But I'm interested in their own IP. I've said that for many, many months. This is something, there's no approval. Disney, can we give this utility or not? They don't have to do that. They do whatever they want, and they can do anything they want. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
As in maybe
absolutely.
you need that NFT to get into a certain part of the VeVe verse or something. They can do
Yeah.
anything they want.
That's probably massive utility there, especially in the VeVe-verse. Yeah, absolutely.
So imagine this. Imagine like everyone's like, oh, I'm going to flip it to get liquidity for AF15, and AF15 will do, I believe if AF15 doesn't do well, like I like don't think VeVe's going to do
I mean,
well.
Yeah.
Like that has to go, that has to do well, right? Because it's tied to the
it's gonna
physical
sell quick.
popularity.
Yeah.
So you think about that, but like maybe these cards potentially are worth more than the AF15 in the future. It is possible. I don't rule anything out, and they could do anything they want with those cards. They could make it more valuable than getting a secret rare AF15. They could add so much utility that it trumps the AF15 secret rare. It's possible.
That's such a good point. And that's exactly why I emphasize to a lot of people. That's why I love investing in Disney or these big brands, because they have the resources to make these collectibles as valuable as they want.
Yeah.
If they want to turn Walt into $1 million NFT overnight, they have the resources to do that.
And they're incentivized
they also
to
have the
do it.
incentivized,
They're
exactly.
Incentivized. Yeah,
Spencer.
exactly.
100%.
Exactly. Free access to Disney parks for life. Access to Club 33. Done. $1 million overnight.
But the thing is, when they brought up renting as a thing for OUP, to me that communicated a few things. Number one is, hey, like we believe that the floors for these collectibles that will have some utility or value are going to be so high that people won't be able to buy them. So you'll have to rent them from other people. That's the first thing that hit me. And then the second thing that hit me, kind of latching onto that, is, hey, these will have utility because we'll have to they'll need to be valuable. Otherwise, why would you rent? So renting, to me, when they first released that can, especially for people who had a certain amount of OMI in the system staked, that communicated, hey, that we're not only bullish on the NFTs, but we're probably going to add utility, because why would anyone want to rent otherwise? So these are little subtle things that communicate certain things to me that I pay attention to. And I'm excited about renting because renting's a thing, and it stands for everything I just said.
So when you say renting, are you focusing just on the metaverse? Or are you thinking like real life utility as well? Like renting for, if Disney adds certain utility that you have the option to rent it out, do you think that's a possibility of something they would do? Yeah.
Well, I'm big onto renting your land, renting your, metaverse store, renting your NFTs. That's why I'm really big on building your following within the app. I've always been a proponent to this, because I do think we're going to be in this world where, let's say I wanted to get people to my VeVe land to watch a movie where I'm charging, again, this is just an example, where I'm charging 20 gems or 1,000 OMI for someone to watch the movie with us, or something like an exclusive movie and whatever. Well, I'm going to want to promote it to my followers on VeVe, because especially with the desktop app, your followers are still there, right? That's still important. And I think the hearts are for searchability, and I think the followers are for promoting towards someone. So searchability is when you're searching in the app, if you have more hearts, like most algorithms, you'll rank higher. And I think that for followers, that will give you people to market and promote to. So if I want to get people there, I promote it on there. But then another reason why you want to be connected in the community is then I'm saying, hey, Sean, Spencer, whomever, can you promote this as well? And they'll promote it, and thus I'll get more people, and thus more gems, etc. But at the same time, Sean or Spencer, they're looking to host something on their land, or they're looking to rent one of their collectibles. And they're like, Dan, can you help us out? This stuff happens in every aspect of business, and I can't see why it wouldn't happen here. And that's why I actually just hit 2,000 followers today. So it was
Nice.
good timing on saying this, actually. But
Yes.
Amazing.
I think that's really going to matter. Johnny Dunn has 5,000. Some community members have 6,000. I don't think we've seen anyone who has 7,000.
Yeah,
I think
something
that's
I
going to
never,
matter. And then I
really
think there's
thought
going to be
focus on.
sponsorships. I think there's going to be sponsorships too. I think
Yeah.
you're going to have billboards and other things from brands that are not, I don't think it's going to be as Disney as much, because, they have so much power and leverage and brand within the ecosystem already. I think it's going to be other brands I think like a Coca-Cola or whomever that have large marketing budgets that are going to say, hey, we want to push people in the VeVe community to this specific area where we have land, and we have a budget of X, and we're going to pay, Sean and Spencer, Dan, whomever, maybe they do 20 people to promote using the app maybe on YouTube, but I think the app's more valuable for pushing people within the ecosystem, and then to have like a billboard or some promotion on their lane to get people there. And so I think that that's going to be real because I've built platforms on everything at this point, and it's the same model, just a different platform. Wherever there are eyes, wherever there's engagement, there's opportunity. And so I see that could be a thing, and knowing that could be a thing, what are you going to do now? You building your following, I think, is going to be a really important asset moving forward.
Goosebumps.
And I think the stuff you're doing here with your YouTube channel, you might be doing it in the app and in the VeVe verse in the future, because their goal to create this economy to be ultra successful is how do we get people to work in the app, right? Work and live in the app, because there's a source of entertainment, not just a way to create income or whatever. And so they're like, okay, how do we get these people who want to generate content to do the same thing that they would do on YouTube or wherever else in the app, and then eventually in the metaverse? To me, that's what's going to happen. Because again, goes back to what Spencer was saying that I wholeheartedly believe, always follow the incentives. Why does Disney want these to do well? Because they do well when the NFTs do well, right? So everything's kind of connected in that respect. And so that's why I think that they want more of our attention in the app. They want to increase engagement. And that's why you're seeing things like, MCP points for posting or liking something on the app. Again, it's how do we increase engagement, because that metric is really important to get other brands on board.
In the article that we wrote recently, we talked about how these digital assets right now, you buy, sell, and trade them instantly around the world, but having the opportunity to change the language on them within the app, that's incredible. That's incredible. Like having a chance to sell it to China, and someone could change it to Mandarin, and then someone from there sells it to Russia, and then they could change it to Russian, all within the same day. And it's an actual owned asset that people can enjoy. Man, it keeps me up at night. I get so excited about the opportunity there. And especially in this metaverse where we can really, social media, people talk about how it connects us, but also pushes us away. But I think there's a real opportunity here for this metaverse that really can unite people around the world in a big way.
Well, and around things that they all love. Like
Exactly.
It's not like people in Hong Kong don't know what Disney is,
Right.
So I think that's part of it. Again, accessible mainstream app with IP that people around the world love, right? Because if I I can connect with people who love Batman, who are in Italy or Singapore or wherever, right? And like we have a common interest already.
Exactly. And even earlier today, David, you retweeted a tweet from Wendy. Big shout out to Wendy and her article about VeVe in Japanese. And he even tweeted and said, this is our next target audience. Yeah. That's kind of a big deal. We've been speaking about this for quite some time, but now he's actually publicly talking about it. We're going after the different markets around the world. And that is awesome. See him vocal about it.
Well, and he knows those markets well.
Exactly.
That's also very helpful because there's nothing like actually going and maybe making connections in those countries to understand what they're looking for and how to maybe tweak things so that it'll resonate with them. And to have IP that's specific to what those people like to collect as well. Because of course there's this, global IP that we're used to, the Marvels, the Disneys, et cetera. But then there's more localized IP of what those specific communities and countries gravitate towards. And so you gotta, it's mainstream, but also there's all these sub communities and countries that you can appeal to through IP. And the good thing
sometimes
is
the sub communities and the more niche stuff, like you have even more passionate collectors than the really big global IPs.
What was it? Peely?
I was just about to bring that up, Dan. I'm glad that you brought that up. Those Peely, the fantasy dolls.
Was it Taiwan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Peely Fantasy. Yeah, really.
But I've never heard of it, but
no.
Eventually those people will hopefully, download the app and they'll see it and they'll recognize it and be like, oh, wow, this is something that I collect already. So why wouldn't I do this? So, we'll see how that plays out and how long that takes. We just don't know, and it's, you could say, this time period is like Spencer was saying, like a kind of it's a blessing disguised as a curse in a sense where, a lot of people are down right now, but maybe this like lull, is what we need to start to, build the global community and get people involved because, it's still hard for the average person to go in and be like, oh, I can't afford anything. So there is something to that, to have at least some inventory for everyone. And I believe they said that they didn't build the app, for everything to just sell out. Because again, it goes back to the accessibility factor. That is the greatest competitive advantage the company has, in my opinion. Accessibility in terms of IP that people recognize, accessibility in terms of quick to download, quick to buy, no crypto knowledge necessary. So I think the accessibility factor is important, especially when you're talking about other countries as well. You want it to be accessible in terms of dollar figures so people can at least step in.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, being able to buy, sell, and trade these instantly around the world.
Trading is going to be cool.
Huge.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
Yeah, that's going to be
I've
fun.
spent
Trading.
all the
Being able to make
amount of
offers,
hours
too.
wasted trying to find mint numbers. Like,
Yeah.
it's exhausting. I just want
I
to
don't
find
give
out.
Hero much credit, but on trading, I think they got that right.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
they know. I mean, people love doing it. I was watching Gale videos and he was trading all the time. And should I trade this? And I don't know. I really like this low mid back girl and all that he would say. And so I just thought, I think that dynamic is really gonna help, and especially with the people we have on the platform. And honestly, like the off app stuff, I mean, I don't know how much you love doing that at this point, Sean. And like, I don't even think you can do much of more of it, but
No.
I'd rather it all happen in app and clean.
I
like the idea
agree.
of clean. Let's just make this clean.
100%. Yeah. The only reason why I've helped with escrow trades is because that opportunity
Yeah.
isn't available within the app.
Exactly.
When that happens in the app, I'm not going to help with that anymore. But I've seen people got their collectibles stolen. I'm like, okay, well,
Scams and-
I'll make sure to help people so that ensure that they're doing this safely. And that's important to me. But yeah, I want it to happen within the app, and I'm very excited for it to happen with the app for both the community and myself, because there are collectibles that I'm excited to go after. I spent almost 2 months trying to find the 1977 lightsaber of Luke Skywalker. The one day I don't look, it goes online. And congratulations to the owner of that. I've actually reached out to him and inquired about trading for it already because he tagged this on Twitter. I'm like, oh man, that's awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah.
I'm
so happy for you.
I'm so happy for you. But
Love it.
I'm very excited for that because I think it's going to create more engagement and people are going to be more excited about buying and selling and trading things. Like it's trading is going to be very, very important.
And I think
Very
the other key point that we didn't mention that I was going to bring up is a lot of people are like, I'm on the physical side or I'm on the NFT side. And the reality is they're both best friends. Like
Yes.
they both support each other. Why?
100%.
Because some people are getting exposed to physicals, but for the first time through the NFTs, right? And I think that the NFTs are some of the best promotion that the physicals have ever gotten, right? And it's like lifelong promotion because you keep seeing it and it keeps reminding you, hey, these exist in the physical world. So I think that, and like what you've seen for, Ninja Turtles or some of these other drops with Funko is you get the digital and then you get the physical, but people again overlook the digital and then just immediately sell that and keep the physical, thinking that the NFT is just like a means to get the physical, whereas the NFT potentially could be more valuable.
Yeah, let's bring that up for a second, Dan. I want to give a big shout out to you for being on top of that. One of the first drops by Funko was on Wax. It was their first NFT, and it was tied to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles IP. So it was the first time we saw the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in digital format on the blockchain. The Grail NFT, there's 999 of them. Typically, there's 999 or less of this specific collectible. Once the token to claim for the physical was made, majority of owners were discarding them and just selling them for pennies on the dollar because they just felt like they were receipts. Like, okay, got my physical. That's why I wanted done. So they just get rid of the digital. But in our opinion, those digitals are as important as the physicals, if not possibly more significant over time. We'll probably see that happen. And recently there was a Transformers drop, and it was the first time we saw the Transformers in the blockchain. And Dan was on top of that. And
that was wild. That was fun to watch.
It's dump day.
These grails are like the grails though. Like Optimus Prime, what's a bigger Transformer? Ninja Turtles.
And he's gold.
Leo.
Yeah, Ninja Turtles. I think Leo. I mean, I don't know. I'm a Donatello guy, but Leo is still big time.
Yeah, it's debatable.
That's a little bit more. But they had to choose someone, and with Ninja Turtles, a lot of them are tied depending on which turtle you like more. So it's but Leo's the leader. So, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
And Scooby-Doo, it's Scooby-Doo, right? Like so they are choosing the right grails. And then Hot Wheels was, I mean, that's my biggest victory off.
That was
that's out of control.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
has the physical been claimed yet? Because you both got one. I slept on it.
Yeah,
like
I
an
have the
idiot.
physicals. Yeah, they're at my house right now.
Oh, good for you
Oh,
guys.
I just bought the end. I did my same strategy. I bought the NFT when it dropped, and the thing is just it just keeps going up because it's the lowest mint one of the first
yeah.
series, and they've done 3 series now. And
Yeah.
honestly, I didn't even know much about Hot Wheels or like what the collectors were like, but that brand, they're really invested in it, and people love it. People really collect Hot Wheels. So I went on like once I got it, I went on eBay. I'm like, oh, people are really paying a lot for these. Like this is a huge group of people who love this. And it's not like I didn't know Hot Wheels growing up, but like again, like I wasn't trying to invest when I was a kid. And now I'm looking at this, I'm like, wow, yeah, this thing is very cool. And that's been probably my best victory.
That NFT is doing very well. Yeah, it's
There's only
very
600 of
impressive.
that grail.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's
very
just the
impressive.
bone shaker.
And they were
one,
smart.
right?
I'll tell you
Yeah.
what they said in wax. Yeah, I'll tell you what they said that was really smart that hit me. They're like, okay, for the first series, that the grail will be 600. And this was in like a Twitter space. And then, but we want to keep that one collectible. So for the next grail, it's going to be a larger mint size. And I was like,
Nice.
that little thought was so brilliant. It was like a David
Yeah.
Yu thought. It's like, we're going to do this because I know it's going to mean something to these people.
Mhm.
I
Hot
just
Wheels-
think that it's a little things that are like David Yu's business card, the little things that's like, oh wow, this person really gets it.
And they also talked about potentially doing airdrops as well, right? For owners. Isn't there like utility added as well? They mentioned in AMA. Was that something- for the Hot Wheels for owners?
Oh, I
of,
don't
like, the
know.
grails?
I've been getting some airdrops in Funko overall though.
Oh,
So-
yeah, that's
So I
right,
know,
okay.
yeah. So I don't know. I haven't done enough research in terms of like if you're holding like 6 grails from different collections, you get like I just don't know that. I like to get surprised. And again, like I'm very big into surprise and delight. Sometimes I just don't want to know and want to be surprised, and that's why like I've done this like whole campaign of VeVe should just surprise and delight, stop giving timelines, just like come out of
Yeah.
nowhere and crush
Yeah.
it. Like I like that.
Under
It
promise,
makes it
over
fun.
deliver.
Like they just put out a tweet, hey, welcome to MCP, go to your profile, you're either master collector or
Yeah.
not, or something. Like that is cool. Like people would love that.
Transfers are back. Enjoy.
Yeah.
People would love it. They really would. But again, you can get into trouble if you're like, we're gonna do this by August 26th.
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah.
it's we know you're working on it, just do it and crush it, and then bam, people will get so excited. And I think MCP is going to be fun. I think it's just, I guess I'm also and I don't know how much you like psychology growing up, but I love consumer behavior. I love organizational behavior within a workplace too.
Mhm.
I just like to see how people react to certain things. It's just enjoyable. That's why sometimes I'll like jump into Twitter spaces just to see how they're reacting to drops and stuff, because it's also like community sentiment is really important. Like you can tell if something's going to sell out or how well it'll does based on how people talk about it. So that layer of data, the qualitative data, is extremely important in terms of how you think about things in the market. But I like to see how people react to certain things. And when AF15 drops, I'm just so curious to see what happens. Is it going to run up like Walt? Is it not? Like I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how many mints or anything. We can all guess it's 60,000, but I'm just always curious, and I sort of have faith in the process that things will get tweaked in the right way over time. Like if something doesn't sell out, worst case scenario, they like make it sell out. They burn everything like they did. We saw it happen with Captain America last year, remember? So we can't rule anything out because we've seen them do things like that.
Yeah. Do you feel that DC, it would be a huge miss if they don't drop their comics on VeVe?
Yeah, because my whole philosophy around like Marvel Comics 1, for instance, on VeVe is this is something I'll never own in the physical world. So the NFT is access. It's an opportunity to actually own it in some regard in this medium. So that's how I derive value for that one as an example. But with DC, I mean, they won the golden age, and in the golden age, those books are good luck. Like,
Yeah.
it's not only that they're expensive, it's just they're like Marvel Comics 1, like they're very scarce and like they don't really come around too often. And I just think the accessibility of getting like, some of these early Batman comics, it'd just be amazing. And it would bring in so many. I mean, some of these comics are so big and so cool and so out of reach that I do think, aside with AF15 will do. I do think that those would be magnets for more collectors to come in. And I remember, Sean, you told me like Ali was like, yeah, DC. I mean, that would definitely be a huge tipping point. I think that Marvel will always release their comics on VeVe. I just think that will always be renewed. And it's because I don't think that they're going to want to have some of their best comics ever on one platform and then like somehow dabble to other platforms that are not proven. It's much easier from a financial perspective and a low, big companies want low risk. That's part of why they're partnering with VeVe instead of doing it internally. It's a little bit less risk, but there's also risk if you start to have NFTs on all these different platforms and to manage it and all this kind of stuff. It's much more complicated. VeVe is a well-oiled machine. 2+ comics a week, they drop, they either sell out, don't, whatever. It's a machine. Why wouldn't you keep putting stuff in the machine?
Yeah.
And this is where the people who are buying them are. So in my opinion, that's kind of my long-term thought about why Marvel will always, you're not going to do 100 here and 1,000 there and 10,000 there. There's over 44,000 Marvel comics. There's over 66,000 DC comics. So why would DC want to do it anywhere but VeVe? Again, this is just my reasoning behind it. It would be sad if they didn't, but at the same time, we'll be fine regardless. But DC, why wouldn't they want the money engine? And they already have a contract with VeVe. So it's easy to just be like, okay, let's just do comics now. Plus, here's the other thing competitively. When it comes to branding and platforms, it's all about mind share too. For every single time us three in the community sees a Marvel comic drop, which happens minimum twice a week, we're not seeing a DC comic drop.
That's a really good point.
So who's winning mind share? It's true.
Yeah.
Right. It's
the
like
interview that we did with David,
movies,
he confirmed that we were definitely getting other comic book publishers, and we've already seen the one so far. What was the one indie comic that we got? It was
Tarzan.
Yeah. But he confirmed that we're definitely getting. I mean, he couldn't confirm DC specifically, but he said that we're going to be getting some smaller indie publishers as well. So I'm just excited to see more content on the app and more ways to consume content outside of just Marvel as well.
Yeah, I'm curious. I think like Image with Todd McFarlane's.
Though, I mean, with Oddkey though, I feel like he's probably gonna push most of the Image stuff to that.
Boom Studio would be massive.
Boom would be so cool.
Cool. I mean, they. So what's cool about Boom, Dan? They've signed a massive contract with Netflix, and they have access to pretty much all of their IP.
Is this Something's Killing the Children?
Yes.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah. That's how I know it.
And also Berserker, which is Keanu Reeves, they confirmed that they're going to make a movie and also an anime series for Berserker, which is Keanu Reeves' comic book, which is created through Boom. But they have so many other series that are just unbelievable. And I mean, the fact that they're going to be shown to shows or films on Netflix, it just creates tremendous pop culture value. So having that access to those kind of comics, maybe exclusive covers on VeVe, man, that's a huge opportunity. Or even creating original series with Boom on VeVe. That is,
I think that's cool. I think new characters and new comics exclusively done for VeVe, as they do the variant covers that are exclusive to VeVe. That's interesting. But I think what's more interesting is, this is something that is only on VeVe. The exclusiveness will bring people in.
Like James,
really smart.
James Tynion, who wrote Something's Killing the Children. I look at him as like kind of like our Stephen King or Rod Serling. I mean, his stories are very, very powerful. I'd love to see an original series from him on VeVe. That would be unbelievable.
See, the cool thing, anything's possible.
He's gonna be at New York Comic Con too, so I'm definitely gonna talk to him about that. Whether he likes it or not, I'm coming in hot.
Like they could do anything. They could do this with memorabilia. If you want Pirates of the Caribbean coin, like we'll drop 100 of the NFTs and then we'll send you one from the movie. Like there's so much you can do. I mean, really, that's what's most exciting about the space is what's not possible. Especially because I do love what they're doing with the one of ones being like, you win that auction, you get a signed physical version from the artist. Cool. Like, love it. Like I feel like, man, the opportunity again, I think about this regularly now, is like with a big bid, with promotion and marketing behind it, like that's the tipping point. I think this other stuff is like good for like serving current and rewarding current users, right?
Mhm.
But I think that to really lift off and get the right capital in, I think you need to signal to wealthy investors, hey, you might want to check this out.
Yeah, definitely.
And I
And
only
also-
say that just like you, Sean, you look at all the other different collectible verticals, and that's kind of how you apply a lot of this knowledge, right? Like the physical comics, you apply it to VeVe, etc. Like I'm just applying something that I've seen elevate all these other markets to VeVe. That's all I'm doing, really. I'm like, what made them take off? Why are there so much money being spent? Oh, there was a huge sale and it was advertised.
A lot of the community have been asking questions about what about physical collectors? When are they going to come into space? I know you've spoken about this quite often. And to your point, it doesn't really matter because VeVe's minting new collectors. So, but what's interesting is having the opportunity to create original stories sold on the blockchain. That is a huge opportunity to bring in possibly new physical collectors because the only opportunity to get involved in that comic.
So this blockchain thing's very interesting to me, Sean, because I'm like here, like this is blockchain, this is, VeVe as a platform, and I'm like here, and I might be a little bit more to VeVe as a platform. So VeVe, in my opinion, becomes what we think, the Amazon of NFTs, then maybe what matters most is what's on VeVe and not the blockchain. Because like I always think about, oh, this random Disney like fan that joins, they don't even know what the blockchain is potentially.
Yeah,
But
they're not going
if
to go to
they
a
are-
Mutascan
but-
and try to find the metadata. Like
That's the thing. And again, the numbers on VeVe versus a Mutascan, like it's a little different. You said, I think that's still like, not many people are talking about that. I think the mainstream user is what VeVe says is what goes. That's why like, the Flash statue, that could be underrated. Like, I'm not going to get it. I'm not even that big of a Flash fan, but because it's the FA on VeVe, that could be all that matters. It could be.
Yeah.
And a lot of the other companies might not exist 10 years in the future, and VeVe is. So, if those companies don't exist and no one cares, like what's relevant too, not just from an IP standpoint, but also a platform standpoint. So if this is the most relevant platform that people care about, and it says FA, is that going to be important? And then it has like a a mint number associated. Is that going to be important, or are you going to have to figure out as a non-Spencer Sean expert in crypto how to figure out? Like if you tell me, Dan, go tell me what a Mutascan says, I'm like, okay, like let me try and figure out a Mutascan.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and but I've been in the space for a while, so I know what Mutascan is. So I'm not going to underplay myself. You know what I'm saying now.
Yeah.
Not everyone is being in the space and is deep in the space. And so I think that if VeVe wins as a platform, it's going to be that platform, and then maybe a Mutascan as kind of an afterthought. I think it matters. I think the platform is going to win up because again, it's like what's simple and consumable by the mainstream. It's a mainstream app. It's accessible. When it comes to going to the crypto tunnels, that becomes not accessible, correct? So what's the quickest thing that's going to make the most sense to the most amount of people? That's why I'm like really harp, and I know I'm like, might come off as old school, but what Google said is really important.
Yeah.
If I Google Marvel's first NFT, I get Spider-Man. I don't, Marvel.com tells me that, I'm good.
Yeah.
I can go to an auction house and be like, I have Marvel's first NFT. Let's put this in auction. And they're like, can you validate this for us? I'm not going to send them a Mutascan, right? They're going to be like,
Right.
Dan, stop wasting our time. I'm going to
Looking
send
for-
them, I'm going to say, Google it, or I'm going to send them the link to Marvel confirming it. So
Yeah.
that's why that makes me very happy. Whereas some of them don't get enough promotion or, are fuzzy, and I'm a little bit less comfortable for some of the other ones. Sadly, I wish I was, but the reality is simple, accessible, mainstream, something that the average person can look at it and not make a counter argument to.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
to me is
absolutely.
important. And that's
Absolutely.
why that's Marvel Comics 1. I like that one too. Again, like I told you, it's not just because Jeremy likes it and it's the most expensive one I paid for, but it's also because it's accessible in a way and the physical isn't, and because I can Google Marvel's first comic NFT, pops right up. No
Yeah.
problem. No one's gonna argue. I love that. The one thing, honestly, I know this is kind of fun, and I have this one too. I think what I would do for the partner statue is in the app and online, I would say first appearance of Mickey Mouse, comma, first appearance of Walt Disney. I'm actually, the fact that it says first appearance and it doesn't specifically say that, I think is a miss, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because again, and again, I'm not trying to create fun around this because I have it and I care about it, and I know you guys have it, but I think you just got to be as specific as possible because then no one challenges anything.
Yeah.
And it's so easy for them to do. They can update it in 5 seconds because it's true.
Yeah. I think you're on. It's a very good point, and I think that's something that probably happened over time. And but the thing is, to add to that, I think the Walt Disney statue, the partner statue, is that's such sensitive IP to Disney that they'll do it justice. It won't be like a Todd situation where DC's being all wishy washy and they won't come out and say anything. Disney will be very vocal about that if they need to. But I also think that in my opinion, this is speculation on my end, but there's going to be utility tied to that thing to make it one of the most popular, if not most valuable NFTs possibly. And ever. I think they have big plans for that statue, and I'm really excited to see how it plays out.
What are your thoughts, Spencer? Hold on. Spencer's like meditating. He's like, like.
I'm sure we've talked about this a lot. I'm with Sean. Maybe it's just because I've heard Sean say it so many times. I don't feel like I have something else to add.
We're all like O'Hare zombies at this point.
Yeah.
It's fun, especially like talking to someone like VeVe Magic as well. Big shout out to VeVe Magic. She really understands the collectible side of Disney. She speaks to a lot of the collectors as well, and she knows that IP frontwards and backwards. I feel like I did do it pretty well, but man, I feel like I'm just brand new to the game when I talk to her. She's so impressive. But she definitely knows the significance of that statue as well. And she just feels like there's big plans. So I'm excited. It makes sense too, right? Because it's in their best interest. They get 6% commission off every sale. And it just markets the entire space and it markets the rest of the collectibles. Because I think that collectible could potentially just be the ceiling for all of their collectibles moving forward.
I think the thing that stood out to me about that one is everyone universally knows and probably likes Mickey Mouse. But I think Walt is an interesting part of that statue too, because most entrepreneurs want to be like Walt. He's like an aspirational figure. And entrepreneurs, typically aren't successful entrepreneurs are usually not poor, right? Yeah. And so I think that there's a market there too, because it has the mainstream appeal, but also the entrepreneur niche appeal. So I think that's what makes it unique in that respect.
You're so right. He's in my opinion, the most celebrated entrepreneur in history. I don't think there's any question. Yeah. Yeah.
Him, maybe Steve Jobs.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point.
And that's and that's about it. I can't think of anyone. Buffett in a different way, but I think Steve Jobs more similar. I think Steve Jobs more similarly, just because in terms of the nature of the business too.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm a huge Bob Iger fan. I tried to interview him when his memoir came out because I'm just like, how the heck did this guy convince George Lucas to sell Lucasfilm and then also convince Steve Jobs to sell Pixar? It's like,
holy,
$2 billion these must be the hardest sells ever. No, but it's also their personality types to try and get them to do stuff is like, can you imagine trying to get them to do something?
Right.
He's truly amazing. Yeah.
Super impressive.
Yeah. Like if we got him on the board of VeVe, that would, things would change overnight, I think, just because it's just him with like the Alcon is helping broker some of the deal, like both of them combined, I think. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would be cool to have Iger. I think Iger's a key player in this space.
I wouldn't be surprised if they have had conversations. He's working in a metaverse or Web3 company right now. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's stuff going on behind the curtains like that.
There's a lot going on. For as much as we know, multiply that by like 100,000 of what we don't know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's so much more. And it's just, that's why I think they have to be very careful with who they hire too and who they fire and all that, because there's just so much going on behind the curtain.
Yeah.
There's just, and it's so complicated because the amount of brands they're dealing with, the amount of innovation and things that are on the roadmap, there's just so much.
Yeah.
You just have to be really careful in that respect. So
100%. Well, Dan, so amazing, man. I've been excited for this day for a long time, and I'm so happy we finally.
I almost feel like I've already been on the podcast.
I know, right?
I feel like the podcast happens every day. So,
and if you aren't already, make sure to follow Dan at Dan Schawbel. We'll make sure to include his Twitter and Instagram links below. And
check out the videos on YouTube. We got Kevin Eastman and
amazing. I'll
Todd
make sure
McFarlane. All of Sean's buddies.
I'm going to include both of those actually in the details below as well. So make sure you give those a watch. Incredible interviews and so much fun. Dan, you're so amazing, bud. I feel so blessed to be able to talk to you and just know you, man. This is amazing.
This has been fun. And Spencer, for the next drop for Funko, let's do a 20-minute grace period for Dan to pick things up under $10,
Yeah,
please.
We'll see. We'll see.
Spencer the Whale Vogel.
Yeah.
Oh, come on. I'm
Oh
blushing.
man, it's too funny. If you're not having fun in this space, you're definitely not doing something right. I mean, this is, I get so many laughs. I think like if you laugh enough, you like lose weight. I think I like lose a pound of laughing. This is hilarious, especially like the memes in the community just make me laugh so hard. It's funny.
Well, thanks so much for joining, everybody, and we will see you on the next one.